And so they've been pretty much getting things, all of their products free. And that's the source of their so-called wealth. At the same time, they've been very abusive, to both friends and enemies. And so now, you have the problem, like when we talked about very early in the year, and the last part of last year, when we was talking about that embargo with the courts, etc. While people didn't take it seriously, when they start seeing all these malls and these local stores closing up, and then they start seeing all the other support systems close up, they can keep on playing if they want to, but they're going to be concerned about their next meal. And then the other deal is with the Saudis dumping oil on the market on a massive scale in order to kill the fracking industry, etc. That's why the gas prices are as low as they are. Not that they should be higher anyway, but all of these things are coming home to roost. And while people are playing around trying to decide whether they want to take a position or part, it's sort of like people are in a situation now, they're going to be forced to a reality that most people did not want to face, or wish they could dream themselves out of. They ain't getting out of it this time. So we have the monstrous problem of, like we always say, fixing the nigger problem once and for all, or watch civilization fall apart. It's on us. And then you have the interests on the outside that have pretty much held us in quarantine based on our decision on what we're going to do on this planet. So they're in a situation where some things that they're used to controlling is really outside of their control. And they also don't want the masses to figure that out either. Because as soon as the masses will find it out anyway, but as soon as it comes as a reality to the general masses, the priesthood is going to be the first ones that's threatened. When people figure out all this misery that they've been experiencing for all these generations, and all these wars, all these deaths, and they've been looking at demons and devils, and they find out it's the priesthood always has been, because they don't know that the bankers and the priests are partners. And so they're trying to mitigate this thing in order to save their butts. Just put it this way, even though they have a lot of power, there's a difference when you're dealing with people that have nothing to lose anymore.
Yeah.
You can take and take and take, and then when you have a situation where people have nothing to lose, that's when those in power can't win. Because, so like, you get rid of them, you got to get rid of some of your own. Decide what you're going to do about it. This is what their situation is right now.
What do you think about timelines, Todd?
Time when you're living it. You're living it. So we need not look too far in the future. We need not look at things coming to happen. We must recognize the things that are happening.
Yeah.
And also recognize there's a lot of things going on, but they're undercurrent. Like Dee was talking about, the Pope visiting the letter that he wrote to Obama. I think everybody needs to get on top of that. Also, one of the Saudi princes, or one of the Saudi kings, visiting Obama. Isn't this recent too?
Yeah, that's today.
Yeah.
The patent letters are in the back.
These are the minutes.
Yeah, but but the patent letters are in the back. You wanted the patents, land patents.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And even Because one of the reasons I was going through that, quicker, brother.
We had a question. We were reading that you're discussing about what you're going to do with mom. And the question we had concerning the letter. Oh yeah, here it is. The question I have is, where in the letter it says the Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, unsigned checks written in closed account or closed account.
Closed account, that's in the, yeah.
So we wanted to kind of explain what this is. So I explained it to you, my family. And it says, unflavorable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, evaluation of currency.
All right, so that's talking about Trafficon. Now, Pew and Paul and them had recent conversations with a brother who was working with him with Trafficon, and he told him that he was going to kill him.
Yeah,
we kind of knew that too.
He's a friend of mine. That's my friend. That's my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brother Nixon over. Yeah. That's with the congressional records, which we gave everyone, and we told everyone to study that. That's House Joint Resolution 192, and that's an excerpt from James Trafficon's speech on the floor of the House of Representatives in '93. Now, with a little background, you must have a little background of knowing his references. Much of what he was talking about was spoken of on the floor of the House actually earlier in 1932 and 1934 by Louis McFadden. And Louis McFadden criticized the establishment or the neutralization or compromission of the Congress and their establishment of the Federal Reserve System, which you already know that's part of unum sanctum dum diversus, really the Spanish Inquisition. And keep in mind, all of these things have definitive ties to the coup of 1861. And this is again why that's important. When Congress adjourned sine die, 1861, keep in mind 10 years later, that was actually a coup. Remember, in history, that's not talked about as a coup, but that's actually a coup. And in 1871, 10 years later, they did what is known as the Act of 1871. And this is where they secretly were transferring the wealth and the government into the hands of the Jesuit order. And so the United States Republic was actually overthrown then. So most people think, and this is why sometimes we're talking, I'll go into history because most people aren't able to look at things from multiple angles at the same time. But you must be able to do that to really understand what's going on. You cannot look at the world with small eyes. And like when people are talking about House Joint Resolution 192, they're looking at actions done by Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the fake bank holiday, etc., the transference of the gold, etc., theft of the gold, the reaffirmation of the construct of the straw man type thing, the birth certificates being put on the market, all this type of thing. They don't talk about the marriage certificates. They mainly focus on the birth certificates, but those who know it's the marriage certificates, birth certificates, original manufacturers, titles of origins on all your cars, mortgages, etc. All of those bonds is what backs the U.S. corporation company who has been its body of people who have been pretending to be a country. So we got to put things in context. What you have is an impostorship ever since then. And you have the difficulty of the masses being able to handle that in their mind. And they're used to calling them judges, senators, presidents, etc. And actually these are fictions that they've been hiding behind, actually carrying out the Spanish Inquisition, which is the Inquisition against the Moors and Yahudi, or what you say, Moors and Jews, i.e. us. Do you understand? And so also, like when you look into contemporary history, and you look at the dissolution of all the Republican forms of government in the southern states, that was done in order to institutionalize forced servitude or peonage, or what people call slavery. Now, and that is because of its relationship to, as they would call it in history, the Negroes, which is a false statement because of the relationship to the Moors. This is also why you have some signals sent out by Obama when he went before the convention, when he went to Egypt, and he told the world that the American Constitution is derived from Muslim law. See, you got to put all these things together to understand Masonry, understand the secret societies, understand the Daughters of American Revolution, understand Knights of Malta, understand Skull and Bones, understand White Camellia. You got to understand all of their motives are clung or connected to a knowledge of the true history, not what the masses think.
Obama had another argument.
Right.
This was small one, man. Obama had another thing that nobody talks about. It's kept real quiet, but he made a statement that treaty trumps Constitution.
Yes, it does.
They're not talking about it. I got this off a conservative blog site because I belong on those Redneck Peckerwood sites like Citizens Concerned, Council Concerned Citizens and all that. I used to be on all of my own this. I used to know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Holding your enemies close.
Yes.
Close to your enemy close.
Now, the reality of those politics is what our people need to get up on. And our people are really behind the rest of the world. This is the difficulty we have. Also, like even when we have in places like this, when we're informing people who really don't have a background in the real history. And then a lot of the politics is preserved with the Europeans openly in their societies. Because you got to remember, those two right there, the conscience Whigs and the cotton Whigs. Most of the Europeans that are running the agencies in the contemporary times at North America are cotton Whigs. Do you understand? The conscience Whigs are those Whigs that were against slavery, peonage, servitude, etc. This is also why it's important for people to know about Horace Greeley, and why I brought him up as I saw the people evolving in their studies. Meaning, as I was running into people studying more and studying harder, you got to bring them more information. And those of you, who are involved with Great Seal Order, that was the spark on why I brought this up. Because until people really get some other information grounded, there's no need to talk to them on other issues because it's just not going to sink in. It keeps going like this. Even with people, like, when you understand the real politics, you don't dismiss things and you don't underestimate things, but you don't get on the bandwagon every time another sovereignty argument comes up. Or we got a new method, we're going to capture your left heel to your birth certificate of the CUSIC number, and then you see people run around circles for 2-3 years, and they keep them busy, and then as soon as they do that, they start another wheel, and people jump on that wheel just like these lemmings going around, like you know how they used to put the little gophers with the children and they're going around that wheel. And it doesn't mean that these things aren't of interest. And it doesn't mean that they have no validity in their surface presenting. But when you know the real history, you already know the motives, meaning that you kind of understand the reality that the Europeans know that the land is Morocco. You must kind of get that through your head. So no matter what their politics are or are not, you can't get past that. And so when you understand certain fundamentals and they're presenting to you different arguments, etc., that are based in how people feel, different schools of thought, etc., you already know that it's a diversion, because you're not going to get past that. You can't get past that. And you can't get past the fact that all of the politicians in all of the states, etc., since 1861 are imposters and frauds. So it doesn't matter how desperately we want these things to be real, because we've interacted. We've been participating in a lot of things, but it doesn't remove the fact that they're a fraud, and it's only a matter of time that it must collapse on itself. Meaning that our desires, our wishes, can't save it. And it's like anything else. When you discover that you're compromised, and we all have been compromised, it doesn't change the fact that we're compromised. The difficulty is to accept that. Because we build our lives around these things or these institutions that construct society. You know what I mean? And so you have the difficult thing like this. All of the things and institutions that the people have put their trust in the name of their sense of security, are going to dissipate. That haven't already dissipated. And the people have no concept in their mind on a different paradigm. You understand what I'm saying to you? When people have worked all their lives and saved in 401k programs, retirement programs, stocks, bonds, CDs, it's difficult for them to accept that none of that stuff was there. And it never was there. Not that, it's not going to be there. It never was. They've been robbing the people from the door. And what they've been doing is making what you call current mouth-to-mouth or hand-to-mouth payments with people they robbed yesterday to have people still having faith in the system. And so it has run its course, and they're in a quandary trying to figure out how to keep working this thing to keep the people's faith alive, because everything has been operating on blind faith. And so they've been forced to continuously do these wars to keep covering their backs. That's why the wars are continuing. And so they have to keep going around to and fro the earth, devouring nations to steal their gold. And now the nations are combining their forces to counter them. This is what you're faced with today. Get on the mic.
Also, I guess you can almost, what I'm coming to the conclusion, this war never ended since Barker Bay and the Punic War.
That's the whole point.
All the way through. It's the same war.
This is the point. We have gone to sleep. That's all. Meaning that we've been going to sleep while they continue to wage the war. And in the process, we've also forgotten ourselves. And so therefore, we've also forgotten motives. Do you understand? Meanwhile, the Europeans have preserved secret societies, Masonry, Skull and Bones, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Daughters of American Revolution, Union Guard, White Camellia, etc., where they have kept the truth alive for their people and their rulers. And our people have been given belief systems that have actually dumbed them down and made them easy victims. And it's just hard for us to accept that, because our concepts are so flawed, and we've clung so strongly to belief systems that were actually military designs that we actually think are divine. So it's difficult to really come at a people whose ideas of gods and demons has been constructed in a military boardroom. It doesn't compute. Not that it's not provable, it's just that it's still the people being groomed for so many generations, even when the data is before their faces. It's just hard for them to accept that they've been played. Meanwhile, he's accelerating his efforts to get rid of them so he doesn't have to face it. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, and so when he's giving people, these beliefs, and they're going to, capture this and capture that, and finally get their hands on this bottomless pit money account type thing, whether they're talking the CUSIC number, or whether they're talking authenticating the birth certificate, all these types of things. You know, it's even the very presentment. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't examine these things. Just use intelligence. It's like a baby there. A child can use intelligence. How would you or me need to authenticate what the word authenticate means, prove, valid, etc. A birth certificate that they've been using all the time, and if it wasn't authentic, how did they use it? So why is it now that you're trying to claim an interest in it that you got to authenticate it? A child can figure out that you're getting ready, you're on a treadmill. Knows they're buying time. They have no intention to do right. Do you understand? So what's happening is the nations of the earth are turning on, including their allies. And so what's happening, so whereas the people have been in denial, and I understand their denial, I don't knock them for that, because no one likes instability. You know, because instability means destabilization, insecurity. People don't like not being secure. However, you're in a situation that they don't have a choice. You know, so the best thing that we can do rationally is unplug people from that false matrix as fast as we can with some reasonable information, and trust that they have some kind of divine connection, spiritual, to save themselves, because they don't know that they can get eliminated.
Funny you should say that,
Yeah.
because that was my next thought, putting yourself in their place. What they got to do now, before these people wake up, they got to eliminate them, because they're the true head.
This is why, see, and this is the, when you look at Pope Francis, they're faced with the whole pseudo-religious system on the planet collapsing. And that has been the control mechanism for the last couple thousand years for all of humanity. They've been controlled by the Pope, whether they're in Judaism, Islam, or Christianity. Across the board, people keep looking at, when they're looking at the Pope, they're looking in their mind Christianity. Those who know the truth know it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all your major religions. And he is God. And that's not a negative. He's the God of this world. You know, Yahshua said in the book of Thessalonians 1 and 2, it says, when I was yet with you, I told you these things, that they claim to be God, put themselves on the throne, claim to be God, etc. But people need to understand what God means. It's not a negative. And the fact that the Pope is God is also not a negative. You must respect him for that. Because he is. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, because you may not agree with somebody's politics, you cannot discredit them for the powers that they possess. For that's dishonesty. Do you understand what I'm saying? Meaning that respect your opponent. That does not mean you honor what he's done, but respect your opponent. Go ahead.
Also, in Ezekiel 28 says he sits in the seat of God. That whole chapter is about what you're saying, that he takes the position of being God on earth.
And he never denies it. He says he's the vicar. Vicar is the substitute. Even in all their Masonic orders, they have a substitute password. It's all connected. But people's denial disallows people the capacity to use their divine reasoning to solve problems. And so then they seek the solutions from the idol God system that's given to them by the ones who's declared God. And this is why we have no solutions. It's sort of, our people just convinced, they're convinced that they're special. And that they got this personal relationship that nobody else has. Meanwhile, it's really the Jesuits. Always has been. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. You know, don't get angry at them. Respect them for having power, of having control of these people's minds who keep thinking that they're so spiritually high and they're really not. It's hard for people to accept they've been had. We've been had. let's get over ourselves, grow up, and start learning that which is truly divine. And it's just that simple. And willingness not to do it is going to be very costly. So the Pope is here, and he's trying to mitigate. He's trying to mitigate. Let's look at this, because this thing is going, this thing represents heavy bloodshed. It really does. Either way it does. The issue is how do we limit it? How do we minimize the misery on humanity? You're not going to stop it, because they've got to pay for what they have done. Because these people have murdered all the prophets. It wasn't just Rome, it's all these believers across the board. And then they've been all these generations blaming the mythical devil for the things that the priesthood have done. You can take a little child, and take them to the Bible, Quran, etc. Look at them when they ran Prophet Muhammad out. Look when they ran Yeshua out. The priesthood set them up, met with Rome, had secret meetings, assassinated the character of all the good men and women on the planet that work for anything moral, set up their murders, and then blame the devil. And all of these houses of so-called faith worship have always been raising finance to kick the devil's ass, who's never done a damn thing. And it's been the priesthood all the time. You know, and so when you look at the Pope, you got all of these corporate corpses, because remember the whole corporation thing is a high priesthood spell, and that is spell to call the people to death and extract their essence for the living. That's what the corporation issue was, coming out of the Sister QV Act of 1666. Just take that one off. Give it a minute. And that is the construct of the War Department's construction of the 14th Amendment creation of the corpse, and called the corporation a person, and then converted all conquered property of humans into that corporate stock. That's why they made it a double stock trust, which Traficant was talking about in that letter. They made a double stock trust and disallowed any other legal person to do the same. Therefore, can you, me, or anyone capture that birth certificate? Meaning capture that wanton ship? Because we're talking about ships at birth. We're not talking. Yes. So they converted the living into the dead and then sucked their essence to serve the living through the corporation, so people will not think in corpse. Vampirism. And so the world is in misery, and because they can't see, they can't figure out what's keep happening to them. Now that the world is waking up, the priesthood is planning on murdering the people so that they don't get their estate that has been cribbed. This can be expressed in genetics. In the book of Genetics, chapter 25, with Rebecca. Again, and that's also when they set up this aristocracy off the James River, they changed Mataoka's name to Rebecca. There's absolutely a correlation. And so when you look at Rebecca in the Bible, and you look at Empress Mataoka, and they renamed her Pocahontas, renamed her Rebecca, and threw her over the ship in Gravesend, England, and it started that aristocracy, and then named the river for Prince James, and then it became King James, and then they altered all the scripts of the Yucatan and made the Septuaginta, and then they became the Bible, and they've been controlling the world ever since. This is also represented in that movie with Denzel Washington, that book Enoch. What's that book? The Book of Eli. He's really telling you to work with the priesthood. Because the whole key to that is the priesthood's control of the world. That's the key to their godship on the planet. And so it's hard for people to accept that, because they keep attributing it to the highest God not knowing it's to the lower God. And you can understand it's kind of difficult. I mean, we've all been raised with these books. And most people's heart is in it sincerely. You know, it's not like the people are really coming at this with a negative intent. It's kind of hard for them to accept that we've been played. Dr. Naila?
Islam. I was just, several thoughts have come through my mind while you've been talking. Let me see if I can bring any of them back, though. One thing in particular about the Pope's, the timing of the Pope's visit to the United States, even the fact that he's going around the world, it's at the time. He's going to be in New York, I guess.
He's going to be in Philly? Philly is key.
DC first, then the New York.
See, because he must go to the 7 churches or the 7 circles which are in Asia.
But here's what the plan was to make. On the 28th, the day after he leaves Philadelphia, we have what's called the 4th blood moon.
Mm-hmm.
The significance, what has happened historically is that every time there was, I think there were 7, maybe the 7th time since there's been traced, every time there's been a 4 blood moon sequence, there is some significant, as they say, occurrence. Major, significant. Major, 67, yeah, 48, I'm sorry, is one of them. Yes, which Israel becomes a nation or whatever. You got 67.
Yes, and then 77.
77. So this is the next one.
Yes.
I think this is the next one. So very significant that he's going to be, in Philadelphia the day before that. So it was interesting for me to see where he was going to be the day of the actual blood moon. That's
why they're blocking streets and they're blocking the bridges, and for miles around, the people are only going to be able to walk.
Right. But the other thing I wanted to say is when you talk about the fact that they are so going down, if you will, and at the point of losing their grip, they're trying to take as many conscious or maybe asleep people
down with them.
And I saw or heard, for instance, there's a big event going on right now with our community in Florida. And it was interesting, something struck me that a part of this event, which is being called a family reunion, I'm not going to name it, a family reunion that they have, Walgreens, I think it is, doing a major vaccination.
Oh yeah, Nano.
In Florida, and my flag went up. My antenna went up. Right, my antenna went up. I'm going, oh, people, please don't take these vaccinations that they're going to be offered to you at this event, because I believe it is another way, like you said, to introduce these non-viruses or just straight out viruses. I mean, every time I see a place that says they give flu shots or whatever, and they're pushing it.
Going the other direction.
Absolutely. Because they're really trying. And the third thing I want to say is that what we discount often is our galactic cosmic support.
Yes.
And the fact that they have been fighting for such a long time to keep what we've been dealing with at the minimum that it is. But they are going to let some things happen just so that we can get, if you will, this new heaven, new earth scenario.
It has to take place.
There are beings of light that have not manifested, some are ascended masters and so forth, that have been working on our behalf.
Yes.
From various galactic areas to keep what's getting ready to happen to this point from happening, but they're going to allow it because of the good that has to come out of it as a result.
And so out of the pain comes beauty. And this is where
the Bible calls it beauty for ashes.
Well, this is why, that's why it's called a great and dreadful day. So it's kind of like which side of the sword is better be at the handle end than at the front end.
Well, if your consciousness, and I'm not talking necessarily about fist in the air consciousness, but if you're able to transcend, if you will, this third dimensional reality, because that's the thing that they've been trying to do. Sugar has been one of the greatest tools that they have used to dull our senses and our ability, poison us, and to calcify the pineal gland, to keep us from being able to move into other dimensions. We are multi-dimensional beings, and we've been duped into believing that we're just third-dimensional beings and that we're at the mercy of. And so we need to be doing some things really quickly as far as trying to detoxify our bodies and our minds, know who we are, know what we can do in order to save ourselves and our family. You know, Jesus is not coming to save you. You know, I stood on that pulpit for many years and told people that lie. You're going to have to save yourself. It's going to have to start with yourself. So some of the very things that we have become, comfortable with, we're going to have to let it go in order to survive.
And what really needs to be told to people, that it's not a lie, it's a misrepresentation. Because Jesus is going to save them. But Jesus means justice.
Justice, but not
Justice will
the
save
physical being that we've been given the picture.
The Son
This one is
coming closer.
It is.
And see, so what is happening is that it will purify of all mutants. And then this particular solar system is coming close or moving into a larger wheel closer to the center of this particular galaxy. And so what's happening is that the energy is going to change on the planet anyway.
Well, the electromagnetic field is really dropping to just about the zero. There's some stuff happening. And so people are starting to feel things, and people have been questioning me and others, why do I feel like I lay down and when I wake up, I've never been asleep. Why does my body feel like I'm feeling vibrations? I'm hearing a lot of people are feeling the effects of what's going on, and they need to know that they're not crazy, but they're being, they're actually being tuned up.
Everything is accelerating, and it's difficult for people to continue to measure time when time is not.
It's an illusion.
So a lot of things that people have measured their lives by are really just dissipating. It's just not simply going to be. And then you find it's with the priesthood, they're in the difficulty of finding it not only not necessary but totally impractical to keep maintaining the institutions that have kept humanity full, that has been burdensome and expensive, and is actually a useless exercise. But at the same time, knowing the mental trauma that it will cause upon the humans, and will cause some of them to do things coming outside of the control. And so they're going to be going after persons in position of authority. And the priesthood is part of the closest arms of the octopus on the masses, and they're going to start cutting their arms off. So
I even think I just feel in my heart that the increase of the so-called
consciousness.
No, the killings of the police is a part of a larger plan.
Campaign.
Campaign in order to create or incite the riot.
It's two
I don't
things.
think it's any coincidence that Straight Outta Compton came out now.
Yes.
And all this stuff is being put together.
Timing.
Timing.
Yes.
I feel like it's happening at this time in order to incite the blind and dumb masses to go out in the street and put themselves in a position to be, just being plucked off,
So they can justify
some type of
what they plan to do anyway.
Absolutely.
And this is why you have even some leader guys telling people, some of the things that you just said earlier, that type of stuff, they're really actually being set up. And so and this is again why it's important for people to know the real history, so that they can mitigate their own consciousness, so that they can take responsibility for making rational decisions on what they do and what they don't do. The worst thing they can do is go out there with the crowds. Anywhere where there's a crowd, opposite direction. Because they are being absolutely set up. Now, just as an interest, let's go to Travicon's speech. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. What you look up? Get in the mic so they can hear you, please.
Last week, Todd had check out about wealthy European citizens renouncing the U.S. citizenship, and following UCC wanted to make the claim that on this 2015 is on track to be the most ever. The reason they're giving is that they're trying to evade taxation.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
now, yeah, but get in the mic so they can hear you clearly, because
Oh, okay.
you're talking
Excuse me.
spotty.
I'm sorry. The thing you brought up was talking about Europeans renouncing their citizenship.
Europeans denouncing their U.S. citizenship.
2015 is on track to be the most ever.
Yes.
The most ever. What they're giving, the reason they're giving though, is that they're trying to evade taxation. The IRS, that's the reason they're giving.
You know, and I know, and we know that while there's, that is a truth, that's not the total truth. What they're trying to avoid is death and total economic annihilation. What they're trying to do is convert, because we keep, this is how we got to look at this. Remember, all wealthy Europeans are well aware of and were never stupefied in recognizing that all of their instruments under the United States Corporation Company are fiat instruments, which means everything that's constructed under the United States Corporation lives and survives and is maintained on blind faith only. When the blind faith dies, the wealth dies because it's a total illusion.
Ponzi.
So, what the wealthy Europeans are trying to do is to convert their federal instruments into hard assets offshore because they're being disallowed onshore. When they talk tax, it appears to the masses as a surface issue. They've always been able to rob the poor to cover their butts as far as tax is concerned, because all of their wealth is stolen wealth. So there's nothing that, in a sense, that they can lose, in a sense. It's just that they're going to lose it all. Now, when you pay attention, and the other reason why I wanted you all to do the research on so-called wealthy Europeans denouncing their U.S. citizenship, I wanted everyone to observe this particular fact. And this is logic. Why aren't those so-called wealthy Europeans filing UCC-1 financial statements to save themselves? Why aren't they going to jump around a mulberry bush and authenticating their birth certificate? All of these things that people are being told to do to save their butts on the secondary level, but the people who really control the wealth, etc., is jumping ship. They ain't going to file no UCC-1. They ain't running all over the place trying to authenticate one thing or another. They're not trying to control that QSIC number, and we're not saying that these things don't exist. The reason I told everybody to look that up is so that people can recognize people who are in the know do not jump on the bandwagon every time they throw some kind of sovereignty thing in front of you, making you think you're going to, oh, we finally going to get the golden ring. You're on this merry-go-round, everybody trying to grab this golden ring type thing. Meaning that we need to step back, chill out, and watch what they're doing. In other words, you're on a plane, the plane's engine ain't running, watch what that pilot do. And when they start going to the bathroom real often, you stand by the bathroom door. Don't be going back to the tail like everybody else. You know what I mean? When they do things that are unusual, pay attention. Because remember, The wealthy Europeans, number one, all of them is Masons. Whether they're Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Shriners, whatever, they're all Masons. So they got a different frame of mind anyway. Number one, most of the people that are workers work for them in some kind of business or corporate entity, whether it's subdivisional or whether it's an LLC or whether it's a shell company. When these people start making movements like that, and everybody telling you go file UCC1 and you running all over the place like a chicken with their head cut off, thinking you're going to get your hand in this bottomless pit account that they're controlling, when they ain't damn controlling it, what they going to give you? What they're doing, keeping you busy while they're putting their house in order and they're abandoning ship, and we playing Titanic talking about put on James Brown. You understand what I'm saying to you? This is why I told you to look that up. If we pay attention, the wealthy do not do the things that they keep promoting for us to do.
And Charlie, the other thing goes with that is that the banks, the European banks,
Yes.
are letting them boys open no bank more. They're not letting them open accounts.
No more accounts?
They do
Yeah.
not want that debt. They do not
Exactly.
want, they
Because
don't want them FRA.
now look at, and after you finish giving the mic, but pay attention to what's happening. Because they are all locked down by that treaty. You know, and so people need to really understand that when the Pope's coming here, he's visiting his corporation. The people's mind is coming to America like it's some kind of separate jurisdiction, and he's just visiting, you know, and he's visiting his company. And these people are the stock. They're the sheeple. And these houses on every other corner are spy centers. And these people think they got some kind of super duper spirituality with Jesus as Father God, and has been the Pope all the time. You know, even, this is why you even have to take people to the congressional records. They're not even hidden. And Article 3, which is the clergy's true oath. And their oath is to the Pope, not to Jesus, not to God. They're submitting the nations, not just people, the nations to the Pope. Do as hit the fan. The roaches have come out from under the cabinet, and everybody, you know, come home to their nice apartment, turn on lights, and they're not designs on the floor, they're roaches. They run all kind of ways. Didn't know you had them, well, tough, you got them. So what's happening is the Pope got a problem that when he's trying to clean this stuff up, because whereas these people are dealing with their usual dynamics of political moves and political shenanigans, the Pope is recognizing that this is divine. You cannot circumvent divine law. And if he gets in the way, because this is the rule, you get in the way and it's like a steamroller. Now, while you got all these dummies believing all this game, they all in the middle of the highway playing lunchtime, you know, I-95. And these trucks to them are illusions. Well, you're going to get ran over. You know, and what they're doing, what he's trying to do is limit, because as this thing really gets crazier, whereas the dummies, the believers, are very, very slow. They're almost like they got ice cube brains. But the middle class Europeans are stocking up weaponry. They're taking their rod and their staff, and they're heading for congressmen, preachers, and all these guys, and this is why they're trying to get them weapons. Especially in Texas area, you know, because whereas, you know, with our people, the believers with the weak minds, you know, have the minds of little children like boys and girls, you know, you can come stomp their babies in the ground, rape their women, hang them upside down on trees, cut their guts out, and they'll march and pray. Middle class European will drown your goldfish in his own water, come kill everybody in the house because they're there. And so they know, because they know the real history. They're not spooked in the illusions that we have chosen to adopt as belief systems. And so when it comes to reality, we're either stagnant, in park, or in neutral. The rest of the civilized world is in fifth gear. You understand? While we sitting around still talking beliefs, the rest of the world is dealing with mathematics, reality, dimensional sciences, nanosciences, etc. Galactic realities. And we still dealing with idol God systems that they gave us thinking that is real, which only puts us in what you call the slow lane and easy pickings for them, because they recognize as these people wake up, they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. Their poverty is totally artificial. And everything they've been doing has been on a social treadmill. And even if, you know, you kind of present the truth of the history, it's almost like you can open up the gate to liberty and they'll start debating about whether they should do it or not, while the rest of the world is miles ahead over the mountain. Meanwhile, they're sending troops, they're going to kill these people before they wake up because they're the heirs, because that means all of the things that they've been used to for all these generations going to disappear. All the fiat currency is dead. And so whatever's not converted, this is back to this too, Q, whatever they can't convert is done. So what they have, they got this house of cards with this marked deck, with all this fiat currency, and some musical chairs. They're dumping stock on the dummies who will buy it, while they can still trade energy, converting it into hard assets, whatever it is, whether it's gold or silver, or some land, or something physical. Knowing that overnight, these people will have suitcases full of this fiat, and you know, your newspaper make better firewood than that dude. Go ahead.
That's what I wanted to speak on, the FRNs. We got friends that think, I don't know why they think it, but they think that they can take those FRN notes and buy this gold, that what carat bars that they call them.
Yeah.
And they don't know whether they got tungsten in them.
Most everything that's on the market is salted. They call it salted.
Salted?
Salted. All salted is 90% that anything that's in what you call the flat market or in the general market is tungsten. Salted means it has alloys in it, but usually tungsten because of its weight and density.
So why would them that know FRNs are going to be worthless?
Well, they count on the dumb masses. The dumb masses are the ones that usually do that, and then half of them go buy gold paper. They're transferring gold stock, not actual physical gold. And then those who do transfer gold are getting salted gold, which means when you understood these things years ago, those who didn't start activating a couple of years ago are already too late. Meaning that anybody that didn't act on this information a couple of years ago is already too late. It's still that desire to, you know, oh, I'm gonna do it now. Well, you can, and it really kind of doesn't matter, because it's really too late. Right now as we speak. And so, the best thing that people are going to do is figure out how to survive where they sit, where they stand.
Some food in the house.
Whatever, and they better learn about nature, learn how to capture water.
We're in a harvest.
Yeah, forget storing. If they're going to do anything in water purification systems.
We're in a harvest season right now. It's
Yes.
good to start, you know, those jars that grandma
Yes.
used to purify
Yes.
the jars.
Mason jars.
Yes,
Mason jars.
and they
That's
don't,
right.
you know, right now, you find most people, they don't even know basic home ec stuff that used to be common. Not only they can't even cook, that's more even cook something and put it in the jar. You know, we are so away from culture. That's the great danger right now, is that we have fallen away so far from fundamental basic culture. That's the basic danger. Even people walking out on their lawn right now and cannot tell you what's food and what's not. And many things they call weeds are food. Many things they call weed or medicine. You know, but because they followed after the dark priesthood, people are going to starve. They're going to die from sicknesses unnecessarily, because the Creator has everything around you that you need. But we've gone so far away from anything that's divine in our connection with the earth, that's the greatest danger to humanity now, our disconnect from from the earth, actually. And so, because when you look like this, let's be real. Whether you, I, or anyone else has salted gold or not, if you had it, you're not going to spend it. If anything, that would be reserved. What you would spend is silver. So if you're going to get anything, get silver.
Yep.
And preferably old coins.
Yep.
Which would be recognized around the world. Because even when you get silver bars, they're going to be salted. Because remember that they are bouncing more than triple. And so right now, like say if you try to convert some Federal Reserves into gold, or say right now, and you're dealing with 12 to 1500 right now, if on the world market out off these shores, it's like you starting around 35. So you already know anything that's sold on this shore is salted. It's either salted or it's a gold bond, not actual physical gold. If you get physical gold here, almost guarantee it's salted. Because those in the know is they're not going to take gold that they know that in the world market is going around 35 and sell it to you for 1,200. It's not going to happen. It's salted. And so put it this way, let's cut to the chase. Anything that we haven't already started, it's already too late. So let's think about, what do you know now? What do you really know right now? What can you really do right now? You know what I mean? Put yourself in that scenario. Because what's happening, it's clearly going to accelerate. Because when the Pope comes to Philadelphia, which is one of the 7 cities of the 7 circles, because everything is being revealed, etc., already know that the cycle has already started. It's not coming, it's already in process. What you have is that the masses are so asleep, they can't see it. And so they keep looking for, is the bus coming yet? They're still looking for the bus, and the bus done already ran over their foot. Oh, is that why I was limping? You probably. You know, and it's sort of like one of those type of things.
Hey, Todd, up where I live, I mentioned it to you before, but I found that a friend of mine is a construction worker. He's building these readiness centers near every airport. You hear me, family? Readiness centers. And what they are, the servicemen with Humvees and tanks, they're all inside these readiness centers, and they will shut off the airports when everything gets ready to happen. Nobody's going to be able to go anywhere. You ain't going nowhere. And recently, when I talked to you last year to get my paperwork together, go try to get a passport right now. See what they tell you.
Ain't nobody.
Like Todd said, if you didn't start, you better think about how you're going to survive where you're at.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm out. I'm gone. But I know it sounds crude, but I use my head.
Yes.
I got silver, quarters, dimes, nickels. People buying these bars. If there is any food, use your head. You ain't gonna give a man a bar. What's he gonna give you back?
Yeah.
Well, I got 4 or 5 loaves of bread. Here, let me give you a bar. He ain't got no change for you.
You got that right.
But you got some nickels and quarters.
Yes.
Right?
You'll recognize coinage.
I don't know what's wrong with us. We're not awake yet, but.
And it's back to the thing. It's almost like
Thank you, brother.
The people are so stupefied in their belief systems that they will go down to death. You know what I mean? And the deal of it is not to worry about that. Try to save the children. Start a clean generation. Because that's what's pretty going to happen, because almost everybody that's contaminated with the belief systems are going to have to be removed one way or another anyway. So it's a negative, but at the same time it's not. Because in order for the earth to be cleansed, all the things that have defiled the earth must be cleansed. And it's how to put it this way, it's a hard knot to accept, but yet it's something that we actually don't have a choice in. Although we like to think that we have choices. You know, like we like to make that we have choices. You actually have no choice in this area. And when you look at, from a cosmological perspective, and we talked about this for the last 2 years, with Saturn and Uranus ruling this Aquarian age, this is monstrously purifying. If you really understand it, it is monstrously purifying. And so anything that is out of harmony with fundamental divine principles, you know, it's not my decision, your decision, or anyone else's decision. It is from the galactic energies that it won't survive. You know, just like if you pull a rock up and then you have certain plants under the rock that are mutant plants. Once that rock is removed, the sun's it's two things it's going to do. It's either going to get green and get chlorophyll real quick, or it's going to burn up. Our politics matters not. Our beliefs matters not. And it's difficult, and I understand it, for people to come to that reality, but they haven't. It's not their choice to come to the reality. Because right now it's galactic, which means it's sort of like people debating whether they want to see things or not, and the sun standing at high noon, casting those shadows. Once you understand that, it's impersonal. And while people are trying to make it personal, not only are they wasting time, they're in disharmony with nature, and nature is not going to sit around and mitigate. You know, oh, she's a nice guy, he's a nice girl, type thing. Oh, he's Episcopalian, save him. You know, he's Muslim, he's Jew. It does not recognize personal station. When that energy, and that energy's already here, everything is being mitigated. And so Europeans, knowing the truth, they're not sitting around playing games. They're trying to get out of Dodge while they can, and they're trying to convert hard assets. Meanwhile, that's why the bankers aren't opening up any new accounts for them. See, but when you see that, you understand that they are aware. That's all these things that you see them doing, or preparing to do, or attempting to do, is based on an awareness. It's not based on them just making, you know, spare the moment decisions. These are predetermined levels of awareness. This is what we're trying to do, is to get our people aware so that they're not left in the dust. Because when it all boils down, it will be determined by themselves. Because every man, every woman, and child must confess their own. Even the children aren't going to be let off of this thing. And so even if the children don't confess their own, they're going to be eliminated too. And when people are still in this idea about our control, our special spiritual control, we're taking liberties that nature doesn't even recognize. And so when we're even in that frame of mind, we're wasting time and we're putting ourselves in harm's way. This whole idea of this personalized God thing is false. Totally false. You don't know God sitting on the throne, seeing whether you put peanut butter and jelly on the same toasted bread. You know, these are fundamental divine laws that are rooted into nature that does not recognize personal station. You mitigate them and you disappear. You live in harmony with them and you live. Meaning nature seeks to give life and support to all things that respect your cause, which means that what you were created in, that's in your purpose. If you are in harmony with it, nature will aid. You go out of harmony with the design of your constructor, nature will make you fertilizer.
There's a thing I think the Europeans are doing right now, and it's called permaculture. Y'all heard about that one?
Great.
Permaculture. And that's the whole mindset of getting back in tune with nature. It's the thing that we need to be doing. We need to be more responsible for what goes in our mouth than just from the plate. We have to, when Taj is talking about coming back in line with things, and we got to get back to our Zodiac Constitution. We got to get back in the areas and know when to put the seed in the ground so we can, bring forth the fruit of the earth so we can nourish ourselves and be healthy in the mind. Because if it has a commercial on TV, if it's in a box, you shouldn't be eating 9 times out of 10. But that's how we have been miseducated. If you can control the seeds, there's a sister over in India, she talks about it all the time. It's insidious that they know it's more powerful than a bomb, more powerful. If they can control all the seeds in the earth, they got you. It's done. That's the whole thing. Now, all these countries, you hear about Monsanto. These countries overseas are burning down fields. Just burning it all down. Anything that you never modify, because they're coming into the realization of just what these people intend on doing to the people on the face of earth. You know what I mean? They're going to bring people to their knees.
Yes.
If we're not getting conscious, like Taj said, we need to wake back up. We're the ones that taught them when they got here how to put the seed in the ground so they can make the winter. Hey, if like Taj always says, you got to know history. If you understand, the first time they came here, they all starved out. They all died. They all died. Then we helped them. And then y'all know the rest of the story. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So we have to be real conscious about the fact, just something as simple. We had this discussion last week when we talked about the way the Lodge hides thing right in front of your face. Every day we pick up a fork or a spoon to nourish yourself, you know what I mean? But how much do you know about where that came from further than the fact that you walked in the store, it's been wrapped in cellophane, and that's another thing. I ain't gonna get into that whole thing about the flesh and everything, you know what I mean? Because that's really not really us, you know what I mean? I'm really backing out of that one, you know what I mean? I used to raise bulls. Because I figured you are what you eat. And I used to raise my own meat and everything. But then I came to the realization, it ain't for me. You know what I mean? I'm killing myself, putting all this acid in my body, having all this flesh rotting in my gut. Because if you eat it, you keep about 15 pounds of rotting flesh inside of you. You know what I mean? Because we're not made for that. Intestinal tract of those lions, tigers, and bears ain't like ours. Ours is long so it can take the nutrients out of, the natural things of the earth, the green, leafy vegetables and stuff like that. They have an intestinal tract that they eat that food and that acid goes through them quick. And it gets out of them, you know what I mean? That's how they pick up their nourishment. Like Taj said, we got to come back in alignment to who we are. And like one sister said something really deep about us, Sister Naila. She said that thing when she was speaking the thing about how we're not just one-dimensional people.
That's right.
And that's what we've been bamboozled, we've been tricked, we've been played into thinking that we're only supposed to be receiving this thing from one way, and from this, like he said, from the dead zone, from this place of oppression. You know what I mean? But see, we got to start looking at, we got to change the paradigm. We got, the sun rises, and understand what the Most High intended with all that, and start acting upon it, you know what I mean? We got to lose that value system that's been imprinted on us, like the health is wealth. It's not about the Federal Reserve. Nobody here has ever seen one of those trucks, from the men in the funeral procession. You don't take the toys. You don't get to take the Monopoly pieces with you when you go, because everybody know ain't nobody getting out of this alive, right? you don't get out of this alive. You know what I mean? So we gotta wake up and change this paradigm, the way we see things, the way we see each other, you know what I mean? And look at the things that came before us. You know, like the brother that did the first Farmer's Almanac down in Philly, the Moor, who did that, you know what I mean? It was the most popular book in all of the counties. Because he was the one telling them, now's the time to put your seed in the ground so you can eat. And if you miss that, you know what I mean? Because, you know, that's, you know. So I just wanted to expound on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it hit my nerve.
And this is back to traditionally, when we're talking to people, we tell them to nationalize. Why you tell them to nationalize? You've got to understand politics. The ultimate power that is used politically on the planet when nations are in trouble is nationalization. Universal. What Hitler did to Germany, he nationalized. What Castro did to Cuba, he nationalized. What Fox did to, what Chavez did with Venezuela, he nationalized. Raleigh brought nationalization to us, and it's been 102 years, and these people are being slow. They finally waking up, so the Europeans want to accelerate his killing machine. And so you've got to study history to look at patterns. So what they do, don't be surprised. Be surprised it took you so long to wake up. Be surprised that it took you so long to, as you're waking up, to keep falling for these secondary promise games. Well, if you catch this apple, it'll the crystal red coating will turn to gold coatings. And you look on the bottom, you find his Cusick number, and if you go capture that and go authenticate it, go to the Capitol. And then run from the Capitol, go to the Secretary of State. And then, you know, and then people go 2-3 years run around in circles for this. And then as soon as they do that, nothing satisfied, then they send them on another trail. And if you watch this pattern, the same thing they did with the CMOs, right? What's that, 25, 30 years ago. Site drafts. Then it went to UCCs. And then it went to birth certificate. And then it went to apostille. And they got these people keep falling for everything. And it doesn't mean that these things aren't interesting, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't know about them. But you should recognize the source. When the source is running, you don't look for them to take time to make a sandwich for you. I mean, you know, let's look at this realistically. When you go across this country, you'll see these city administrations talking about how broke they are, right? Right? But yet one of the largest incomes that they have is people filing UCC forms that are made on pre-forms issued from the different states. Well, if they so broke, why don't they file UCCs? And why don't the people who keep filing these UCCs watch what they're doing? It's almost like somebody bringing you all their bread and you claim to be hungry. But you tell them, we got these forms for you to get a bread sandwich. Why didn't you make one? I mean, logic says, why didn't they file UCCs? Why is they denouncing their U.S. citizenship and breaking camp? Intelligence says, pay attention. And so this is why I always say to people, nationalize, because when it all boils down, what you have is all these fraudulent instruments in every institution and subdivisional agency under United States Corporation Company that is failing because they're all based in fraud. So anything that you seek to get out of them in a process that they construct for you to step through is a fraud. It's like logical. It's almost like people going to a pig farm looking for lox and bagels. Don't usually, lox is usually made of salmon, and it's not going to get in the pig farm. But it's interesting because they keep believing these people. as soon as they run out of one thing, they'll come up with another idea. And it doesn't mean that they're not interesting. I'm not dismissing them without merit. But I'm saying if you watch the pattern, it gains them a few more years while people are running around in circles seeking this golden apple, this bottomless pit Cusick account. And it's like any other business or any other dynamics, right? Now, as an example, remember when we had the Grace Hill meeting? All right, I'm not going to mention any names. And I mentioned someone that was there and a little bit of past history. And it was curious. Now, those same people was amongst people that I warned years ago, told them that what was going to happen to them if they did what some sister had misrepresented. Many of them are suffering now for it. And that person was amongst them. At that time, they were doing sight graphs. And if you watch this pattern, if you see this pattern, it's over and over and over and over again. And don't disrespect this man when he claims to be God.